Hello YouTube, my name's Al, I'm autistic, and I have grievances. And do you like my new shirt? I got this just recently. Thought it was apropos. Today I want to talk about autistic communities. Because everything's a fucking community these days. Oh, well, there goes my monetization that I don't have. Anyway. We see a lot of it online, this whole autistic community things of advocating for autism, and in theory, it's a great idea. But we see, if you're familiar with autism and autism advocacy and the whole shebang, a common thing that's spoken about is the double empathy problem. How empathy only goes one way. And frankly, it's bollocks. Empathy doesn't go either way. See, a lot of autistic people find that they have to adapt. We have to adapt the way we act to fit in, to be accepted in what they call the neurotypical world. Masking. If you don't know what masking is, it's putting on a mask. It's pretending to be something you are not, often to the detriment of your own mental health, trying to fit in, trying to be normal. And that's a whole kettle of fish on its own. But yeah, autistic people do that. We act in particular ways because we've realized and we've seen that if we act like ourselves, our true authentic selves, as some people call it, we're ostracized for it. We're told that there's something wrong about what we've done. We're not normal. We're weird. We're not like everyone else. And it's exhausting. But because of that, we have this idea that we're showing a lot of empathy for the way other people feel, the neurotypical people, the way they are. We're being empathetic towards them. We're accommodating their world, their views, their way of doing things. But it's not empathy. It's masking. It's pretending. It's self-preservation. It's for ourselves to not get completely burned out. I mean, we still burn out anyway because, you spend all your time trying to hide who you are, pretend who you are. I suppose I expect, from what I've heard anyway, from the way I've spoken to people about this and what I've heard from them, is it's a lot like pretending you're not gay in an area where, you're not allowed to be gay because that's against whatever cultural convention it is. It's all nonsense. Just people are people. There are very few things that we should really be ostracizing people for, and I think we all know what those things actually are, and it's not because a guy likes sucking cock. They want to do that, that's their business. It's nobody else's business. It really isn't. That's what masking is. It's trying to fit in. It's not empathy. It's not understanding the way someone else feels and the way and why they feel that way. It's just trying to avoid standing out. It's not empathy. Empathy is feeling the way somebody else feels, understanding the way they feel. And frankly, I'm highly skeptical. In fact, I flat out will say it is not possible to know how somebody else feels about anything, even when they tell you, because they may not be able to fully express the way they feel. You can only get an approximation. You can have an idea of how you might feel in that situation. It might be very comparable because in most cases it is. Most people don't like getting hurt, so you can understand if somebody else don't want to be punched in the face because it hurts, But you don't know how they feel about it. You know how you would feel in their situation. I suppose if you want to put it like that, because that's the way some people define empathy. Yeah, I'm on board with that one. But it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot more complex than that. So we have this idea of the double empathy problem where empathy goes one way, but it doesn't come back. And that's where my problem with autistic communities come in, because a lot of the advocacy, we always hear about how autistic people are unique individuals. You know, every single autistic person is different, and that's true. But that's true of everybody. It really is. Neurotypical people are just as diverse, just as different, because there's a key word in there: an autistic person and a neurotypical person. Autistic people and neurotypical people. They are all people. There are broad strokes of commonality. Like, I'm British. I'm born and raised in Britain. So I'm going to be broadly similar to other British people. But Britain is a very small place, but it's also a very old place with a lot of different people who have their own cultures that are comparable. You know, they sort of mesh, but there is slang. Like, if I go, we were in Liverpool recently, which is a very close by city to where I'm from. That's where I got this t-shirt from, actually. And their accent, despite being like 30 miles away, their accent is completely different from mine. And honestly, my accent is rather different than the majority of people in Manchester. It's because of my grandfather. He told me once, you know, learn how to speak correctly. He was talking about singers, but he was applying it to the world at large. You know how to make the sounds when somebody is singing, or a good singer anyway. You can see them making the sound of the word that they are expressing. We don't get that with every singer. That's why it's so difficult to understand what certain people are singing about. Like the song, what was it? That one from Bad Boys, Shy Guy. Lord have mercy, mercy, mercy. I couldn't understand what she was saying until somebody else pointed out to me, and then it clicked. It just sounded like gibberish to me. There was a video I saw online once, actually. I think it was Spanish, of somebody singing in a way that sounded like English. It was what English sounded like to them, and it was just complete gibberish. It was just sounds. I mean, realistically, all language is gibberish. We have assigned meaning to it afterwards. But he was doing the thing, and it's almost like I could understand it. When I hear people speaking Norwegian, because the way that language flows when spoken, it flows very similar to English does, right? The pitch and the ululations. It sounds like I should be able to understand it, but I can't, and I've completely forgotten where I was going with this now. Yeah, my grandfather, they think different cultures, yes. People are different. Britain, commonalities. There will be commonalities. Like, I go to Liverpool, and it's still Britain. It's still England. You know, they're right there. But their accent's different. Some of their slang's different. There's some of the things they talk about. Like, a great example of this, actually, is, you know, a bun. A hamburger bun. There are something like 40 different names for it across the UK. I call it a barm, personally. Some people call it a muffin. It can be a barm cake, or I can't remember what the rest of them are. A muffin. It could be a muffin. It could be a bun. You know, and that's just in England. Never mind Scotland and Wales, Britain as a whole, or Ireland. So yes, there are commonalities that can be drawn for people within a group. Neurotypical people tend to fall in a similar way, and autistic people tend to fall in a similar way, and the two ways are somewhat different, but there are also a lot of commonalities. Like neurotypical people don't like being punched in the face most of the time, and autistic people don't like being punched in the face. Shocking, I know. Neurotypical people, human beings, are social creatures. So both neurotypical and autistic people tend to prefer to move in groups, and they tend to prefer to move in groups that are like them. There are always those weird statistical outliers that go out of their way to surround themselves with people who are different from themselves. There are those who shun it altogether, and they say that some people say that, there's nobody out there, nobody at all, who's a complete hermit and a complete recluse and what's the word I'm looking for? Not misanthrope. Somebody who doesn't like people, completely asocial. But there absolutely are people out there who are genuinely completely asocial. They just don't want to be around people. They don't want anything to do with people. And we tend to focus on differences with the out group, the group that we see as different from us. We'll highlight the differences in the way they act. And then for the in group, we'll highlight the similarities. And it's that second part that's the real problem. The first problem is a problem across the board for everybody. You're always going to find there's something about them, I don't like them because this reason. They're completely different from us. They don't align with us. Their values are different. Their culture is different. Their skin colour is different. The shape of their ass is different. I don't care what it is. And, it's fine to talk about those things if there are differences and the cultures are clashing. That needs to be resolved. You need to find a common ground. But that's a whole other issue that I might come back to at a later date, specifically relating to autism. The problem I have is when you start specific to autistic communities is how, like I said, a lot of us online autistic people will talk about how, the commonalities. I fucking hate those things. It's like these signs, these 5 common signs you might be autistic. There is only one. There is one sign, one key factor, one giveaway that you are autistic. You know what it is? Being fucking autistic. That is the only thing that will show you are autistic. I still haven't watched it, but there was a video that popped up. If you brush your teeth in this way, you might be autistic. Fuck off. So I hate that shit. I hate the list things. I had somebody ask me on one of my previous videos of signs of autism, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know what it is about me that makes me autistic as far as external stuff. The way I act. I don't know what it is about the way I act. I can't see anything. I've had people say these are the symptoms, like the way one of the things I did in my assessment was it was to tell a story based on these pictures, and supposedly the way I did that showed that I was probably autistic. It was one of the diagnostic tools that they used, and I'm like, why? Because the way I did it was more descriptive than an actual story. It wasn't like, well, there's Bob and he's walking into a store and he wants to buy this because he thinks it would be great for him. I was describing the pictures, and that's just the way my mind works. Is that because I'm autistic? Maybe. Is it just because that's the way my mind works? Maybe. I don't know, because I've known other people who are clearly not autistic that are also very deliberate like that. They see things in a very, I suppose you could say, analytical or direct or descriptive rather than narrative. Yeah, I love to write. I'm really good at narrative. In fact, I'm a lot better at writing than I am at speaking. When I try and speak, I get all muddled up and it all fumbles all over itself. That's why I go off on these weird tangents. I do that when I'm writing as well. But that's another story. Doing that a lot. Again. This is the thing. This is why I wanted to do these things. Because I get so fucking worked up about all this. And I keep seeing the same shit online. And it's always so smooth and so, it's all edited and it's clean. And that's not autism. That's a fucking story. You're telling a fucking story. You're creating a narrative. And that has utility. It's a great way to explain things, using simile and analogy. I love doing that. I love that shit when I'm writing a story. But it's creating a problem. It's still tying into that whole thing of autism means Rain Man. He wasn't fucking autistic. They knew that at the time. But he's still considered that's autism. That's what an autistic person is like. But they're not. And a lot of people, autistic people, online in the communities or whatever the fuck you want to call them, they push back against that when neurotypicals do it, and then they do the exact same fucking thing. Okay, it's not about Rain Man, but they do the exact same fucking thing. There are these commonalities. Let's focus on these because we're all like this. We're all individuals, but we're all like this. No, we're fucking not. Just like every other person, just like all people, whether it be cultural, whether it be fucking football teams, different people are different. There are commonalities, but it's the differences that make a person. It's the commonalities that you find common ground, but it's the differences. It's the unique parts that make a person unique. And the autistic community stuff is they have these very clearly defined ideas of what autism is to them. And when they find, just like neurotypical people do with most autistic people, when there's an autistic person who doesn't really fit in with that, who's a little bit different, that's a problem. And they need to be educated. They need to be taught about being autistic. They need to be taught more about themselves. No, I fucking don't. I know me. You don't. None of you fucking do. There are a lot of people who know a lot about me, who know me very well and do accept me for who I am, but they find a lot of the things I do weird. I've been married for almost 9 fucking years and my wife is still baffled by a lot of the things I do. A lot of the way my mind works. She's likes some of them, like when we're watching a film, and if I see a person, I'll form these connections in my head of like, this person, they look like such and such a thing. The best one, the one that she really liked, was we were watching Cowboy Bebop, the Netflix live action adaptation, and the bad guy in it, was he Vicious? I think it's called Vicious. Whatever. Him. Anyway, and I was looking at him and I was like, he looks like Antonio Banderas cosplaying a white guy, cosplaying a Japanese guy, or something like that. And she thought that was hilarious. She had no idea how I came up with all of that, but she thought it was fantastic. She thinks it's really funny, and I do things like that. She said to me just a few days ago, whenever I said they look like, she knows she's in for a wild ride and it'll be something funny, but she just, once I've explained the steps I've taken, people can usually follow along with me. It's like I'll come up with a nickname for somebody and then there'll be like 4 steps that got me to this nickname, and it'll be like, I don't know, like the name's Dave, and my the nickname I'll come up with them is Carl, and they're like, how? And I'm like, well, you see, I haven't actually met somebody called Dave and called them Carl, but there is a YouTube video I'm quite fond of, which is a parody edit of the Transformers, the cartoon series. And in that, there's a character called Dave. And Spike runs up to him and says, hey, Dave, I'm going to knee you repeatedly, and then knees him repeatedly. And in that video, there's also one of the Transformers is called Carl. So you see, my brain will go, Dave, I'll think of that video, I'll think of the knee repeatedly, and also there's a character in it called Carl who's like talks like a robot, you know, the stereotypical robot talks like this. That's the sort of thing I'll do. Like I said, I've never actually done that, but there was somebody on a forum that I used to talk to that I started calling Jackie, because of Jackie Estacado from The Darkness, and it was something to do with their surname sounded similar to Estacado, or the username sounded similar to Estacado, so I jumped to that. Okay, that's only one step, but you know, I do things like that. That's just the way my brain works. It creates all of these random jumps that are very logical once you follow through them, but when you're here and you get here, you don't. Most people don't make those links because they're not in my brain. Even though I've explained the way it works, sometimes I'll say the thing and my wife can make those links herself because they're a bit more direct, but other times she can't because she's not me. She knows me, but she doesn't know me. She knows me, you know. We've been together for a while. She's gotten to know a lot about me, and we have a great relationship because of it. But I think that's a great thing, that there are differences between us. There are differences in the way we think. There are differences in our views. There are differences in our taste in music and films we like. And for me, it's great going and watching a film that she really likes, that I wouldn't normally appreciate, and I can enjoy the experience because I'm sharing it with her. And I've shown her a lot of things that she's ended up really liking, even though it's not for her. Same with music, you know, because I like that. I like learning new things. I like seeing something I wouldn't otherwise have experienced. Like, I review video games, although I haven't actually written any reviews for a while. But because of that, I ended up playing The Crew by Ubisoft, and I usually hate racing games. They're just not for me at all. I love The Crew, and I put like 100 hours into it, maybe more, because it's something about it. It's just, you know, it was something different, something I'd never played before. It was a kind of game that I'd never really experienced before, and it worked for me. So to bring this back around to what I'm getting at is this whole idea of being the wrong kind of autistic. I mean, don't think anybody has ever really said it. I mean, not I've seen, but it's definitely there. It's implicit in the way some people talk. It's like, you know, autistic people are all like this. It's like, oh, you know, there's some commonality, but there are differences as well. And there was one video in particular I saw that was talking about advocacy and, you know, autistic people advocating for autistic people, and it just twisted me up inside because of this. It's because when you're trying to advocate on behalf of somebody else, especially when you're passionate about it and you're what do they call it? Activist style of doing things, you have your idea of what it means, and activists like that always end up co-opting it and twisting it into what they think. There are always, you know, the loudest voices or the most charismatic. They'll rise to the top and they'll control everything, and then lots of the original people who were involved end up leaving because they're no longer happy with where it's going. It happens with religions, it happens with political parties, it happens in countries. You know, like, you vote for this political party because you think that they're going to do these things, and then they do these other things that you don't like, so you switch and you vote for a different political party. All that kind of stuff. And that's what I see happening with so-called autistic communities, is they have their own little bubble now. They have their bubble of similar autistic people, or at least those that will go along with the same ideas. And that's why I'm doing this, because I don't see anybody, I'm sure there are, but then again, probably not, but I don't see anybody doing it in the way I'm doing, coming from a much more personal perspective. Even when I see people doing it from a personal perspective, there's still a lot of restraint because they want to get the point across in a different way, because we've been conditioned to think that you have to be very loquacious and you have to be very persuasive and you have to make your arguments and you couch them in flowery language, or you rile people up with rage. I'm not trying to rile people up and get them to like I am. I'm just fucking annoyed. I'm just personally really angry about these things. I don't expect you to be. The main thing I want to be taken away from what I'm doing here is how angry it makes me. And then I'll explain the reasons for that, and hopefully can broaden things a little bit to understand that there's people like to talk so much about nuance. You know, let's take a more nuanced look at this. And if you spend any time online, you'll know that the vast majority of times when somebody say they want more nuance, what they mean is their side has all of this stuff. This is really complex, it's really deep, it's really philosophical, and it's really well thought out. And the other side are just Nazis, or libtards, or fascists, or whatever the fuck you want to call them. That's not nuance. That's grandstanding. Nuance means I disagree with you, but okay, I can understand where you're coming from. I just disagree. Like, Brexit is a fantastic example of that. I voted Remain. My best friend voted Leave, and I agree with every single point he made about why he voted Leave. I just disagreed specifically that leaving was the right thing to do. And we get so little of that everywhere. But the bit that's specific to me that I'm talking about here is that with other autistic people is they have their very clearly defined ideas of what autism is to them and then project that out into the world, which is a very human thing to do. Supposedly it's more common with autistic people, and I think that's absolute bollocks. In fact, I know it's absolute bollocks. It's more obvious, it's more overt, maybe. It's not, because neurotypical people do exactly the same thing. That's why autistic people mask, because they think we're supposed to be just like them, we're supposed to act just like them, and when we don't, don't know what's going on there, there's just something about them. If you're autistic, or if you think you are, and in a lot of cases, even if you're not, but I guarantee this is one thing that is more common with autistic people, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you'll copy everything they do, everything that everybody else is doing, you'll dress the right way, you'll speak in the right way, but then you'll just get people say there's just something about you. They just know. Maybe it really is like that thing in The Simpsons. Maybe they really can just smell a difference. But I've had it happen even more online. So it's probably not that. They just know. There's just something that gives it away, that you're just a little bit different. And that's a very key thing. That's a very distressing thing for every autistic person I've ever spoken to. And I'm sure it's for others as well. I do not want to downplay that. That's kind of my whole point here, is everybody's an individual. There are commonalities, however. I can't even in good faith say that it's worse for autistic people, because I don't know. That goes back to what I was saying about empathy. I don't know how other people feel about it. Maybe it's churning them up inside way more than it is me, and they're just better at putting on a good face about it. I don't know. I really don't. I don't think that's the case. I'm quite confident that it's probably not the case. It probably is worse for autistic people, or at least people that don't fit in. Probably. In fact, I don't really know if I want to go into this, so no, I'll leave that one for another time. I'll be a lot more vague about it than I was. There's somebody I know who had problems with being ostracized for something about them, and they spoke about it a lot, and it's great. And this was years ago now, and it's still sort of bothering me, and I'm going to go back and talk to them about it at some point, because you see, they said something along the lines of that other people than them, or the people that fall into a different demographic than them, can't really understand. It's like, that's not true. It's just simply not true. And in some cases, for autistic people, it can be worse, because sometimes, as wrong as it is, because it is wrong to ostracize people for any reason, apart from a very few specifics, like if they're doing something really terrible, like if they're actually like stabbing babies in the face, for example, ostracize them, just beat the shit out of them. But let's go back to, let's say it's because they're gay. Don't ostracize people because they're gay. It's fuck all to do with you. It's none of your fucking business, unless they're trying to come on to you, and even then, just tell them no. If they continue to push, then the problem isn't that they're gay. If a guy keeps coming on to me after I've told him not to, the problem isn't that he's gay. The problem is that he's invasive, that he's not respecting boundaries. That then becomes the problem. That's why you'd have a problem with that person. Them sucking cock, their business. Don't ostracize them for that. So let's say that this person was being ostracized for being gay. So when that happens, a lot of people are sympathetic to that. Most people agree that that's a scummy thing to do. When you don't fall into a category where people agree it's wrong to ostracize, and then it happens anyway, and you try and talk about that, a lot of the times you're shut down with, well, you don't know what it's like for them. It's not as bad for you. Fuck off, it isn't. I'd argue that it's worse, because with them, with a gay person, when they're ostracised, they get understanding and compassion from people being like, no, we shouldn't be ostracising them for they're gay, but because it's me, it's like, well, what do you know about it? Well, quite a lot, actually. And then instead of being like, well, that's terrible, that shouldn't have happened, it's like, oh, shut up, you don't know. You don't know how hard it is. Yeah, maybe I don't. Or maybe I fucking do. You don't fucking know. And I'm seeing the beginnings of this happening with so-called autistic communities. They have their idea of autism, like Love on the Spectrum, for example. I don't know if they're all like this. I don't know a huge amount about it. I find the whole idea, it's a modern day fucking freak show. Sorry, not fucking sorry. That's exactly what it is. It's taking these unusual people and you put them out, and then it's like, look how weird these people are. It's a carnival show. But I think it was Australia it originally started, where we have the 3 levels of autism now, which I don't like. But there was another video I saw that was suggesting that we should have levels and categories, like, for example, a 1C or a 2B or a 3D, that kind of thing, which I think is a great idea, because the idea is level 1 is low needs, but then you could be a 1E, so where you have low needs most of the time, but when you do have support needs, they're really extreme. And then you could be a level 3B, where you have very high support needs most of the time, but the B means that these areas where you don't really need much at all. I like that idea, and I found that with Love on the Spectrum is they mostly want the 2s and 3s. You know, the really autistic people. The overtly autistic people is what they mean. The ones that are really weird. So look how quirky this is. You know, it's not a fucking quirk. It's literally my fucking brain. It's everything that I am. It's not who I am, but it is what I am. I am autistic. And every other autistic person is. It's not something that's just a cute character quirk. And that's what's happening in the autistic communities. We're getting a lot of these people that are very low support needs for the most part. They're well able to integrate and get their points across. They're dominating the conversation. We're also finding a lot of people that say they've gone completely mask off and they're their true authentic selves, and they're talking about how great it is and everybody else should do the same thing. And I kind of agree to an extent, but you have to be aware of the fact that if I went fully mask off, I don't even know if I could do that anymore. I don't know how. I really don't. But pretty much my entire life would fall apart, because nobody would want anything to do with me. Yet you get people where it's very easy for them to do that. They're around people that have been very supportive of them their entire lives and have accepted them and will help on their behalf and will beat down the opposition. You know, mob rule. It's like when you get the trendsetters, they'll make everybody else fall in line. And they're the ones dominating the conversation. They're saying that this is what autism is like. It's like, no, that's what autism's like for you. That is what your life is like. My experience is very different. I've been told for my entire fucking life that I'm wrong about everything. I have literally, and I mean, I made a statement, I said a sentence to a person, and that person told me, no, you are wrong, and then literally verbatim said back to me the exact thing I just said and told me I was wrong. That's my fucking life. That is my entire existence, is people telling me I am wrong. I'm wrong about the way I feel. I don't know how I feel. They do. Fuck you, you don't. Nobody knows me except fucking me. If I tell you you are wrong about what I mean, then you are fucking wrong. No, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm saying you are wrong. You have made a mistake. And no, I'm not fucking backtracking. I'm trying to explain it to you in a way that makes sense. And if you don't want to listen, then I'm not going to fucking talk to you, which is pretty much what I do these days. I barely fucking talk to anyone, because it's just not worth the fucking effort. And like I said, this is what's happening with autistic influencers. I fucking hate that word. Because they're influencing the way people think and the way people act. And not for the better. It's for the betterment of them and people like them. But you're not advocating for acceptance of autism. You're advocating for acceptance of your kind of autism. And I've yet to see it happen overtly, as I said. But these people are squeezing out those who don't fall in to the kind of autism that they think is the, what autism really is. And it's different for different people. There's another channel I watch. One of the things they say constantly is my version of autism. And that resonated with me in a way that no other autistic person ever has. It's the only time I've ever heard anybody else say that. And their channel was a very huge instigator for why I started finally doing this. Because I've been thinking about doing this for like 15 years now. And where it's ended up is very different. And I'm glad of that, because it's led to me doing a more authentic version of what I really wanted to do, rather than the really coolly edited and scripted and perfect flow and everything. Because I do that kind of stuff as well. I do that with my video game reviews, but even then I do them in my own way, which has been influenced by other people. Of course I am. The Church of the Motherfucker is a real thing. Everybody, you're now a member of the Church of the Motherfucker. Anyway, that's what I wanted to get about autistic communities, and I'm definitely getting more and more angry as I make these videos, which is good. It's quite cathartic for me. I think I'm getting it out. I think I'm actually getting my point across. Whether you're understanding what that point is or not, irrelevant. I'm getting it out. Finally. So I'm going to be continuing with this in this same style, with me just getting angry and ranting at a phone. That's what I'm using to record, by the way. I'm using my phone, which I've had fixed recently. Actually, I got a new battery installed, which was nice, because it used to run out in about 45 minutes. About an hour and a half if I wasn't using it, if it was just on the lock screen. It still runs out in a couple of hours. It's an iPhone. When I'm using it, it still only gets like 3 or 4 hours of use, but that's a hell of a lot better than 45 minutes. And if it is on the lock screen, it can last all day. Anyway, that's irrelevant. I'll be back with another one of these when I'm back. And I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about next time, because I've done introduction. I've done autistic superpowers. I've done this. Maybe I'll talk about masking next time. I don't know. Open to suggestions. But whatever it is, I'll see you next time. And until then, thank you for watching. Or not, if you didn't. Thank you anyway.